Hello, and welcome to the introduction of the Discipling Marketplace Leaders Ministry. Discipling Marketplace Leaders, or DML, is a ministry of the International Christian Ministries. International Christian Ministries has been in existence for 30 years, serving both the Middle East and Africa, for the purpose of building the church by training its leaders. One of the ways in which leaders are trained is in discipling their members to the purpose to which they have been called in the marketplace, which includes business, education, and government. In our time together today, we will look at this opportunity through the ministry of discipling marketplace leaders. Your presenters today are Dr. Philip Walker and Renita Reed Thompson. Dr. Walker has his PhD in education and has lived and worked in the Middle East and Africa for the past 40 years. Dr. Walker is the founder and president of International Christian Ministries, now 30 years old. ICM is located in 8 different African countries and has trained almost 3 million church leaders, both formally through the Africa Theological Seminary, of which Dr. Walker serves as chancellor, and informally through many workshops and conferences. Renita Reed Thompson has her MBA in Sustainable Development and has lived and worked in Africa for 11 years. Most of her work in that time has been doing business development through other NGOs, but in 2013 she joined forces with ICM to bring the work of business development into the church. From the years 2013 to 2015, Renita led a research study in Western Kenya to study the impact of church-based business as mission. The result of that study is the Discipling Ministry Leaders Ministry you will be learning about today. The motto for Discipling Marketplace Leaders is Unleashing the Church, Transforming the Community, Changing the World. As we have observed the church for many years, we have seen that too many church leaders and members define the church as a building, rather than the body of Christ sent to be ambassadors to the world. When that happens, we confine the work of the church to what happens in the building, and members are constrained by what seems like a leash to define spiritual work and worship as what happens only in the church building. The goal of DML is to unleash the church from its building to being the church from Monday through Sunday and seeing work as a spiritual act of worship. When that happens, we believe that the community will be transformed. And as we push out further from the community, we believe the world can be changed. When the church, businesses, and the marketplace align well, we see a smooth movement of cogs or gears moving in harmony. The church takes a lead role in this rather than a follower role, as members are discipled to integrate their faith and their work in real, practical ways. The church becomes important in the culture of a community as members seek to do their work as unto the Lord. The vision of Discipling Marketplace Leaders is to reclaim the redeemed marketplace through church-based business as mission and bring it under the lordship of Christ. We believe that Christ has come to redeem all things, and that part of what was broken at the time of the fall in the Garden of Eden was our relationship with work and with the earth, which we have been called to work. Since Christ has redeemed all things, including work and including this earth, it is up to the church to reclaim it in Jesus' name. Our mission statement is as follows: to empower the local church to establish and run successful marketplace ministries, empowering, equipping, encouraging, and discipling business owners to have a quadruple bottom line: spiritual, social, economic, and environmental. The ministry of Discipling Marketplace Leaders is not for Discipling Marketplace Leaders, it is for the local church. That is why we are speaking to you as pastors and church leaders. We believe that it is the role of the church to do these things for their members who are serving in the workplace, teaching them to have this quadruple bottom line, which you will hear more about as we go through our session together. We have 4 questions that we would like for you to discuss amongst yourself at this time. The first question is, what % of people in your church are involved in business in some way? This includes those who own a business, those who work for a business, and also those who are involved in farming. Second question, how do business people view the church? Third question, how does the church view business people? And the fourth question, what are the challenges facing business people in your community and in your country today? Please take a few minutes at this time to discuss these questions together. Welcome back. I'm wondering if your discussion is similar to what we have heard in many cities, communities, and countries around the world. For the first question, we find that most churches have between 80 to 95% of the church members involved in business in some way. For the second question, how do business people view the church? Our findings have been that many business people view the church as a place that is constantly in need of funding, and that the church looks primarily at the business people for the sourcing of those needed funds. Business people also tend to see the church as irrelevant to their daily lives and challenges. The question of how the church views business people provides some interesting answers. We have heard from many people that the church views business as a place of darkness, a place of corruption, a necessary evil that is needed to fund the work of the church. Business people believe that they are viewed by the church as an ATM, a place that gives money and finances the work of the church. But ATM can also stand for Appendix to Mission. An appendix is found at the end of a book and is seen as outside the core of the main message to the book. Most people do not read the appendix and wouldn't miss it if it were to go missing. Business people believe that the work that they do from Monday to Saturday is outside the main mission of the church, and that, were it not for their money, they would not be missed if they too were to go missing. Another business person said this to us: "The church treats us like a milking cow. They take us for all the milk that we have, and then send us out to pasture without another thought." In some places, business people are quite angry with how they feel they are treated or valued by the church. Some business people have decided to stop attending, especially when they believe that the church treats the one thing that they do give, their money, inappropriately. Unfortunately, in every place we have traveled, we have seen a need for reconciliation between the church and business people. We will talk more about that in later sections. The last question we asked you to consider was the challenges that are faced by business people. And the challenges that business people face are many. Many of those challenges are internal to the business, such as needing access to capital, finding markets for products, or finding good employees. But many challenges are external to the business as well, such as corruption and equally enforced rule of law. The World Bank puts out an annual report called Doing Business, in which the ease of doing business in each country of the world is studied and assessed. This report can be found online at www.doingbusiness.org if you are interested to learn where your country stands on this. For the sake of our discussion, we will look closely at the country of Kenya as an example. Of the 189 countries ranked by the World Bank in the year 2016, Kenya ranks at 108. However, their score on the ease of starting a business falls at 151 out of 189 countries, and trading across borders is solidly at 131 out of 189 countries. These are important details for Kenyan business people. It shows the challenges at trading across borders. However, the rule of law also shows some challenge as it relates to solving insolvency, or the work of the courts, the enforcement of contracts, and the safety that investors feel in investing in Kenya. Kenya is doing very well in getting credit, however, and that is mostly thanks to the work of SACCOs, or the small savings and credit schemes in the country. Another interesting map that shows the challenges faced by business people is made by Transparency International as it relates to the perception of corruption worldwide. Take a few minutes to look at this map and find your country. Discuss amongst yourselves whether you agree with the findings of Transparency International, and also take a minute to study the standing of your neighbors, as that probably has an impact on the ability of business people to trade over borders. On this page, you can see the listing of all the countries from Transparency International as it relates to corruption, from the least corrupt, with the number 1 spot being held by Denmark, to the most corrupt, being held by 3 countries concurrently: Somalia, North Korea, and Afghanistan. Take a few minutes to observe this chart. So we can see that there are many challenges in doing business, both internally and externally to the business. But we can also see that there are challenges in the perception of businesses by the church, as well as the perception of the church by business people. Let me close off by this first section by telling you a story of 2 hotels, which may illuminate the point. In Nairobi, Kenya, I met a man named Stephen who was working for a Christian organization. He told me that he had been in the business world before starting to work for a Christian organization. As I was moving to Kenya to work on business development, I was curious about what prompted his change in career. He told me he had been working in a hotel, but that he was uncomfortable with the amount of sexual sin that he knew was happening there. He felt he couldn't continue to work in that sector. I understood his decision. It is a real challenge to work in dark places. However, I was also saddened by his decision because when he left the hotel, he took the light of God that was in him away from a place where it could have shone in the darkness, leaving behind all the more darkness. The other hotel story is of a different businessman who owned a hotel. In this case, there was an amazing transformation in this man's life and in the large-scale hotel that he ran. This man owned a 1,600-room hotel that covered 3 buildings. Because of its rates and location, the hotel had become a haven for prostitution, with the rooms being used as many as 5 times a day. There were over 2,000 employees, and the primary clientele were more than 3,000 prostitutes. A friend shared with the owner a formula for winning the lost. So the owner hired 40 pastors and told them to follow these instructions. He told the pastors to speak peace to the wolves, bless those who curse you, eat and drink with sinners, become their friends, pray for them and their needs. He told the pastors that they were not to share the gospel until they had met these requirements for 3 years. What an investment! But ultimately it paid off. The pastors followed these 3 rules and saw every single one of the 2,000 employees become saved. The hotel was upgraded to an executive level, raising the rates and forcing the prostitutes out because they could no longer afford the rooms. They even added a prayer chapel with 24/7 prayer available to anyone dialing 7 on the telephone. 2 years later, 10,000 guests had received the Lord on this property. That is transformation and using the light that is in each one of us in dark places to reclaim them for Christ. Not every business can afford to hire pastors, but every business person can follow the advice given to bless those who curse you, to pray for them, and to become their friends. In the case of this hotel manager, the staff was converted and the hotel no longer became a haven of prostitution. In the case of the office manager, it may be that one other person may get to know Christ, and that the business itself becomes a model of what God would have business be when done with the values of the kingdom at heart. This concludes the beginning section of the Introduction to the Ministry, Discipling Marketplace Leaders. Please continue now to the next portion of the presentation, which will be led by Dr. Walker.